and welcome in, everybody. I am your host, Bo. I have my man, Coach Bono, with me. Wherever you are, however you are listening, thank you for tuning in. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, Bo. How are you today, brother?
Doing awesome. So we have our guest early today, which is awesome. So introduce him.
Sure. It's my pleasure to bring on to Coach's Corner, Coach Anthony Blevins. Coach Blevins, I've known from the National Football League for a long time. Was with the New York Giants just most recently, and he just took a job as the head football coach in the now merged XFL, and kind of found himself out of it, out of the team. I'm going to let him talk about that journey, but great person, great football coach. Excited to have him on the show. Anthony Blevins is our guest on Coach's Corner. How you doing, Coach Blev? How are you?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
I'm doing great.
Excellent.
Good. Thank you for the invite. It's such a pleasure to be a part of the show, and what you guys are doing. So I'm really excited to talk to you guys, talk a little football. I don't get a chance to talk football much these days,
Well, it's just a temporary thing. Why don't we start with that? Let's. I think what's transpired in the last 6 months, I guess, since you announced you were taking over as the head coach of the Vegas Vipers of the XFL.
Well, obviously, I left the Giants right before training camp, so I was, really excited. And you kind of go back and forth, like, okay, do you leave the NFL? Do you know what I mean, for spring league? You don't know, you know all the history around the spring leagues. But, I mean, it was such a good opportunity at the time. I mean, I really couldn't turn it down. Always wanted to be a head coach, and it's still professional football. And
I'm gonna interject right there, because I think that, I think the opportunities to get a head coaching job, especially the very first one, are so rare. There's people out there don't realize how hard to come by those are. I mean, like yourself, just as an example, coached in the league for how many years and working towards that, and then all of a sudden you have that opportunity in front of you. It's a really hard thing to walk away from. I know that. So.
Yeah, and like I said, it came, it's one of those deals, like we're on vacation, get an email, hey, do you want to interview for a head job to be, for the XFL? I mean, why not? And the thing started spinning, and started spinning and spinning. It's like, man, I'm about to get this job. And lo and behold, they called me on a Saturday. We had all the family here doing a cookout. It was like July 1st or somewhere around there, they called. And we had all the family here, and guy was like, hey, can you get on the Zoom just for like 10, 15 minutes? I was like, they're about to offer me this job. I'm telling my wife, they're about to offer me this job. And I go in her office, and, and I get on the Zoom, and, he offers me the job. And I'm like, yeah, let's it's one of those deals where I'd already thought about it. If they offer the job, I'm going to take it. So I accepted the job then. We had to work out some of the contract and all that type stuff. But, I accepted the job, and it was a good opportunity. It still is a good opportunity. And then as we go along, putting the staff together, and you start hearing the rumors start coming out on Twitter and, all of social media about, okay, there's a potential merger, and everything's kind of went quiet. And eventually everything's comes out that there is a merger. We get a little piece of information, and they're like, we don't know if it's going to be 16 teams, if it's going to be 12 teams, 10 teams. It was just a bunch of information coming out at the time. And the thing that I did at that point, like I had to get off social media. You know what I mean? It was driving me crazy. It was driving me nuts. This rumor, that rumor, hearing from this person, that person. So I completely got off social media, and just kind of waited until it actually, we actually heard something from the league. And when the league came out and said it's going to be an 18 merger, 4 teams from the USFL, 4 teams from the XFL. And, unfortunately my team was out. Very, very, disappointed, to be honest with you. Very disappointing time, especially when, you walk away from the league and, to walk into nothing, essentially, But at the same time, I don't regret doing it. I don't regret taking the opportunity, because I really think like we all, anytime you take a job, whether it's as an assistant, as a head coach, college level, high school, whatever, you're still taking a little bit of a risk in all of it. So I bet on myself, I bet on the league. Unfortunately, in that situation, I crapped out, but at the same time, it was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. So.
And it's still not over yet, right? I mean, there's a chance this league is going into its second year. First year as a merged league, but and with the league owning all the teams and so many so many desirable cities out there still, I have to imagine that there's still room for expansion at some point, correct? And would you be on the fast track or the inside track if they expand? Have you had any dialogue with them regarding that?
Yeah, we have talked, and there is potential potential room for expansion. Talking about maybe expanding a couple of teams for the next season, for the 25 season, and we've talked about me coming back as a head coach of one of those teams. Obviously you never know what happens within the league already. If somebody decides they get another opportunity to go somewhere else and coach somewhere else, you never know what happens there. But there has been some preliminary discussions about the potential expansion. So hopefully we'll know something here soon. Don't know exactly when, if it's a month, maybe it's 2 months, who knows. But there is some talk about expansion, moving forward, for the 25 season. So. It's been fun kind of watching these games a little bit. The prep, it's a lot of parity in the league. So teams are really, 1 or 2 possessions within each other. All the games. I mean, I think it's been, I can't tell you how many games I've watched where it's come down to the last possession. It's been a walk-off field goal to win the game, or, somebody gets a 4th and 12 conversion, gets the ball back and goes down and scores, win the game. So it's been kind of fun, as a, just watching it as a fan. So. It's been exciting. The league itself has been exciting.
Yeah, it is funny that the communication from the outside seemed to be. You seem to get more information through social. Got some weird feedback. There seemed to be some more information on the social media side than there was actually talking to people within the XFL, because we had a team here in Seattle, right? And
mm-hmm.
I was in the process of getting my media credentials for it. I was talking to the head media person of the XFL. And then as the merger started to progress, the email just died. And so it was one of those, it was just like, oh, okay, I guess that's part of the XFL that didn't transfer over. But it was crazy because everything I've heard is from within. There wasn't very good communication as far as how everything was coming together.
Well, I really don't I think they were still trying to figure it out, and so instead of putting out misinformation or telling you what we think or what we, they kind of waited until they really knew everything, and being on the other end, it is frustrating when you don't have that type of communication. But at the same time, I think I'd rather know for sure this is what it is, other than, I think this will happen, or I think that'll happen, because that's hard too, so, all the speculation. So I would rather know the facts. This is what it is. This is how it's going to go down, as opposed to, letting your mind just go spinning and, you hear this person says this person says the sky's blue. This person says the sky is red. This person says the sky's green. And none of it makes sense, So it was a little bit hard at that time, but I would rather know the facts. This is what's going to happen, and then move forward from there.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Absolutely.
So, Blev, you mentioned that you were at practice at the DC Defenders yesterday. What else have you been doing to stay busy?
Well, I mean, that's kind of it. Going to practice, watching teams, how they set it up, how they do it. obviously it's a different league. You don't have all the resources that you do have in the league, you know, as far as coaches and all the amenities that you have. So you want to kind of, get different ideas from different people, take a little bit from here, take a little bit from there. So I watched practice quite a few, but other than that, I watch, I got film access. So I watch some of the games early in the week from the weekend, just kind of keep my mind going on ball and, I'm still in ideas like we all do, you know what I mean? Like, but, other than that, just kind of hanging out in the house, going to work out, for the most part every day and, trying to stay buff, like, but I'm just living life, being a dad, being a husband. I'm just really kind of enjoying this downtime. I'm going to go take a vacation here in a week and spend some time away and because you know how it is right now. We're in OTAs and all that type stuff, and
right.
You got no time. You're looking forward to June 15th or whatever day you get vacation, and here I am. I'm just going to enjoy this time, kind of away from it, refresh a little bit, but at the same time still stay involved as much as I can. So yeah,
good plan.
So looking at the new special teams rules that are coming in, kickoff type stuff, how do you view that? Seeing it in real time in the XFL and now watching it kind of convert over to the NFL this year, how successful do you think that'll be? I mean, obviously we should see a lot more kick returns than we have, although it'll look weird.
Like I really think once people get up over the optics of it, it's gonna be fine. I really like the idea. Like, to be honest with you, it was hard watching the last couple of years. It's been hard watching kickoff return, where the ball's just sailing out of the back of the end zone. Mm-hmm. The guy sitting, the returner sitting there on the goal line, got his arm stretched out. And I'm not gonna return the ball. So it's been hard. So I do think this is one of the rules I really do like. I think the owners got it right. I'm looking forward to having, a lot more kickoff returns in the game, kickoff coverage, kickoff return back in the game, because it has been a lost art, if you will, over the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's become something that really didn't have to spend a whole lot. You couldn't spend a lot of time coaching it just because of your return on investment, right?
Correct.
And
well, there's no strategy to it anymore.
Yeah.
You don't have to do a lot of strategy session for take it out to the 25.
Yeah. And with the game the way it is, the influx of offensive coaches within the game, like, just give me the ball at 25. Don't screw it up. Give me the ball at 25, and we'll go from there. You can fair catch.
Fair catch.
Well, it's a college rule, and be honest with you, personally, I don't like it. I think you penalize teams that are really, teams that are good on kickoff coverage when they play teams that are bad on kickoff return. Like you give them a way out. Let's take advantage of, let's spend some time on it. Let's work on it. And teams that are bad on kickoff return, they've got to invest some resources into it. Teams that are bad on kickoff coverage, they got to invest some resources into it because it's part of the game. It really is part of the game, and it makes a difference. This is the play, like Cordero Patterson, like this is his play. Mm-hmm. Devin Hester, this is his play.
Right.
So, and there's a lot of guys that can benefit from this. Even from the coverage aspect. Coach, like as long as you've done it, like it was routine to see guys with 20 plus tackles, solo tackles on special teams. And you don't see that anymore.
Yeah, you used to have five tackles got you a T-shirt. I wouldn't give out hardly any more T-shirts.
Exactly.
And it could be a resurgence of some guy's career. Like I think this is a spot where a guy like Rashad Penny, who struggled to stay healthy through a lot of his career, but as a shifty runner, has a lot of speed. This could be his ability to, really land on an active roster again. Because he ends up leaving the Seahawks. He goes over to the Eagles. The Eagles, didn't use him at all. And now he's a free agent. the way he runs and the way that this new alignment is, I could see him getting another shot.
Yeah, I mean, I really do think it's a great play, and I think like guys that can stick their foot in the ground, get vertical, make a guy miss in space. Those are the guys that's going to benefit from this rule. I really do. It's going to be beneficial for everybody around. You know, I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited to see how it translates into the league. I can't wait for preseason to see what guys do. Now, you know, and honestly, I think special teams coaches are, you know, some of the most creative coaches because you coach, you know, you basically coaching offense and defense to make it simple. And they'll figure out some way to make it work, some way to take advantage of the rules, and it's going to be a fun play. I'm telling you, it's going to be a fun play. I'm really excited about where this play is going now.
Yeah,
so
the only drawback I see with it is obviously, you know, there's no more potential for a surprise onside kick. That's
right.
the only downside. But you know, couldn't have all of it. Had to, you know, something had to give, and so, you know, I guess in the interest of player safety and the alternative being, you know, taking the play out altogether, you know, I guess it's a good trade-off. But that's the one thing I will miss is the surprise onside kick.
I mean, as soon as they made it so that you didn't have the running start, that kind of went away anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that Pat McAfee era of let him go get his own kick thing kind of died as soon as they made it so that your kickoff coverage team was stationary.
Yeah, I mean, but I agree with you, but there is still an element of the play being alive, the surprise onside kick being alive.
Yeah.
You know,
I think
I'm
that's definitely with you guys there.
You know, and you know, like I mean, you're watching tape and you see a team that's leaving early. It's always there. You know, and that was the thing is you know, you're looking at it and you're always trying to, you know, what's my advantage? You know, how can I steal a possession? And those were things that were always, you know, available, even if it was still a stationary start.
Right. Yeah. Now we'll put all of that extra game plan time into, I guess, punt and field goal fakes.
Yeah. Yeah, without question. It's like, and I honestly, it seems like it's been, you know, I don't have any data to back it up, but it seems like there's been a lot of uptake in punt fakes, you know, over the last maybe 2-3 years. You know, I don't have any, you know, stats to back it up, but just kind of, you know, when I was in the league, kind of game planning, like it seemed like everybody always had a fake on tape somewhere, you know, whereas, you know, it was always before, you know, like, okay, this coordinator, he never runs a fake. Like, you know, like, you know, but I mean, that's just kind of the stuff that everybody has the same type stuff, you know, eventually, you know, and you see it on tape, people copycat, you steal it and borrow it and all of that type stuff. But it just seems like there's been an uptake in people running fakes more so the last couple of years, as opposed to in the past, you know, in my experience, you know.
Right.
I mean, it kind of makes sense because you're not allowed to hit people the same way anymore, right? So if you have a punter that's going to throw the ball, that receiver's a little bit more protected by the rules than it used to be. Because you know, you used to watch some of Jeff Fisher's trick plays, which were awesome to watch, but you watch some of them guys get lit up because that punter can't throw, right? Like that thing's not on a dime. That's that lofty, like you're going to get someone murdered kind of throw. And so now as a Hawks fan, I always dreaded Jeff Fisher because I knew he was going to burn my team at some point. we might even win, but there was a special teams play that he was going to kill us on.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was always when you played, you know, when I first got in the league 2013, he was a head coach in St. Louis. So you always spent time, you know, having a fake walkthrough, you know, formation walkthrough, you know, where other coordinators, you didn't have to do that. So you definitely had to spend time, working the fakes and, you know, lining up, covering the eligibles and all that type stuff. So, so I agree with you.
Now, I remember one he got us on, and it was, I mean, it's still a highlight. It still shows up on ESPN, right? the Hawks kick, and all of the return team faded to the right. The ball was going left, but of course your coverage team isn't watching the ball. They're watching the players in front of them, right? So everybody breaks down. And then it was just this track meet down the side. And you're just like,
Yeah.
straight to the house. It's like, man.
I remember that.
Yeah, we all watched that play.
Yeah. I do remember. I think it was 2014. I remember that. Yeah.
It was rough. It was rough. Because, I mean, as a fan, you're watching it on TV and you have all the camera angles. So you can see what's happening. And you're just like, oh, no, this is going to work. You're like, man.
Without question. Hey, when you're on the other sideline, you're like, oh my goodness. Oh.
Well, and it's not even really a coaching thing, right? Because I've been on the coverage team, or on the coverage team. So you're not looking up at the ball because you get lit up, right? Somebody would come, somebody ear hole you, and you're going to the ground. So you're watching downfield, and you're just assuming based on where everybody's going. So especially if you were on that right side, you're that gunner on that side, you have no chance. All you're doing is watching the other sideline, going, well, man, that's some team I'm not excited about.
Ain't no doubt. That's funny.
So,
yeah, funny but true.
What's that?
I said funny but true.
Since we're in the draft, I mean, draft starts tomorrow. So when you were with the Giants, a long time. What is it that you would see within the building getting ready for it? Since you were there with 3 different regimes, was it kind of the same between them, or was it did it kind of change with the different coaching groups?
Well, every year it was a little bit different. Well, with every staff, it was a little bit different. I was there with Pat Shermer, Joe Judge, and Brian Daboll. So, having 3 regimes, it was different. I was there with 2 different GMs, Dave Gettleman and Joe Shane, who's still there now. So it was different, with Pat, it was more kind of the scouts handled everything, and they would give you certain guys to look at. You go out on the road, work them out pro day, you come back, you write a report. I like this guy, I don't like this guy. This guy is, he's a little bit stiff. He's a little bit knock-kneed, or whatever the case may be. With Joe, we did a lot more of the leg work. Pretty much right after the season, we got right into the draft. Where with Pat, say, I may have wrote, say, 20 draft reports. With Joe, it probably tripled. It was probably 60. It was a ton. We did a bunch of leg work, and we started from the back end of the draft, from free agent, and worked our way closer to the front. So that was, it was a grind in the off season. Like we you watched a lot of tape, a lot of the players, and it was good in that sense. You knew exactly what that player was, and it wasn't a whole lot that surprised you. When it came up to the draft day, you start looking at free agents. I watched this guy. I like this guy. This guy would be a good free agent. I don't like this guy. Because of XYZ, whatever. He doesn't fit what we want to do. And then Brian, he was kind of the scouts kind of handled everything. They gave us a list, and we did a lot of interviews with players, a lot of Zoom interviews. Spent time getting on the board, doing things, trying to figure out how do we teach a player, what's the best way for him to learn, does he fit what we want to do. So everybody was a little bit different, but at the same time, it was all the same, if that makes sense. The process about going about it and learning about players was different, but it was all the same at the end of the day.
So did you find the pro days being very useful? I mean, the guys, the elite guys, obviously are who they are, but when you go to those pro days, it's going to be a lot of those mid-level guys that I imagine you kind of focus in on.
Well, personally, for me, I like private workouts for them, and I think like now a lot of that stuff is going away. But I like the private workouts because now I can really ask you to do things that you may not do in a scripted workout at the pro day, where I'm not in control, I'm not running it, and I'm just asking. Sometimes I'm asking for knowledge. I know it was a lot of times I go on the road and you may want to draft a guy, you don't draft him, but you have all the background. This is what he can do. He can throw. He can't throw. He throws better to his left. You got different notes, and then that helps you when you play against this guy because you have information on him, from a personal aspect. But personally, I really like private workouts personally. Coach, what about you? What was your deal? You like pro days, privates, or what?
I like private workouts as well, and main reason was I really wanted to try to get to know the prospect, especially if it was a specialist, a punter, kicker.
Mm-hmm.
Wanted to be around them, as you know, by the time you get to the workout, you've already put in a lot of hours watching combine tape, any workout tape, game tape, etc. I wanted to try to kind of get into his head, see what his habits were like, what his routine was like,
Mm-hmm.
Deeper dive into how he was or how the player is with other people around the building. I wouldn't intentionally didn't do a lot of like prep work, so I'd make sure that they had to set up the field and all that stuff. If it was a returner and we needed a jugs, getting that stuff just to see if they could handle that responsibility and how well organized they were and that sort of thing.
Right.
I just think that there was a lot to be gained by that. I would always try to take them to lunch, breakfast, or dinner, depending on when the workout was scheduled. And that was, that was a continuation of the interview, honestly.
Right.
Everything from letting them pick the place that we were going to go eat and, and all of that stuff. I mean, if you're taking one of these guys, especially if he's a specialist, you're spending a lot of time with him week in, week out, all year. It's a long season. I wanted to make certain that it was someone that I could, I knew I was going to be able to be around for an extended amount of time.
That makes sense.
I agree with that.
That guy that's just going to be irritating.
Yeah, it was always big, like you said, like making sure the guy could set up the jugs or, he could pick a restaurant and make the reservation. It lets you into a level of this guy can be trusted. He's dependable, things like that. So I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I think, watching the tapes only, and getting the hang times and all, or whatever it is, whatever position, that's only part of it. I mean, it's a game, but it's played by young men, by grown men that are people. They have personalities, and it's a team sport, and there's a lot of dynamics in play. I'll go one further, and Blev, I know you well enough that you will definitely put this one into your file. When I was the head coach, and I would, as a head coach in college, you have very limited time out on the road, and you only get to see each prospect once at their home. I always made or asked the prospect to show me their room. I wanted to see their bedroom, and that would always, really tell me a lot about, obviously you're going to know a lot about the individual when you walk into the home, right? That's going to tell you a lot. But when you see their personal space, I think it tells you, I'd look to see like what's on the walls. What I mean? Like, does he have his does he have his trophies display? If he does, he takes a great deal of pride in that. I like to, I'm not gonna lie. If I remember a quarterback house I went into in New Jersey one time. He's a quarterback, and in the kid's room, he had all his favorite quarterback, his NFL posters in his room. I thought that was good. That's what he's aspiring to be. And, And again, I'm looking at like if the room is too neat, that means his mom is probably doing it for him. So it's another thing,
Right.
Is it messy? How messy is it? Is it an organized mess? All of those things. I think it just gives you a little bit of an idea of what you're dealing with once that person's turned over, once that young man is turned over to you. Now your responsibility and that of your program.
Right. No,
I mean,
I like that.
I guess on that front, once you had them in the building, what was how quickly could you tell if they're going to be that guy on your team, right? Like obviously they'll need coaching and they got to get up to speed and all of that. I mean, obviously that's part of it, but I would imagine it doesn't always take that much time. Maybe this guy doesn't have it.
Yeah.
Are we talking?
Pro? Yeah, pro.
Yeah, I would say for me is how well do they adjust in the building? What's their personality like with their new teammates, people in the building, the cafeteria staff? Are they standoffish? A little bit standoffish, or have they adjusted to it? Accept the kind of accept where they are, and so that's always kind of something that I look at. Is just kind of how well have they adjusted? How quickly do they adjust in the building? That for me, that's always a big deal for me.
And it is an adjustment, because just being paid to play does not make you a pro. That's
true.
And I used, that's something I used to share with players. It's like there's a lot more to being a pro than just getting a paycheck every Monday. There's a lot more to it. I think the two places where they're going to reveal themselves first are the weight room and in the special teams meeting room. Let's face it, by the time a guy gets to the Giants and he's with Coach Blevins and Coach T-Mac, this guy's played a lot of football. And in most cases, he's not in the NFL because he's the best special teams guy. He's there because he's the best receiver, running back, linebacker, defensive back. I think, in defensive players probably more in their DNA, in their job description, but not always. But what's their self-awareness and their understanding of where they're at and what they're going to have to do to compete to get a job, and where are they going to get the edges? If they're, if somebody's educated them and they have an open mind, they're going to know they need to prove themselves on special teams, because it's the more jobs you can do on game day, the better your chances are of, the more you can help the team, the better you can help yourself. I mean, that's where I looked at. I've always saw it. I don't know if Blevs have experienced the same thing or not.
Definitely. Like you said it best. The more you can do, the better off you are, because you create value for yourself. And this league is all about value. When you start thinking about, you got a 53-man roster, and automatically you're down 7 on game day. You got 3 specialists, you're down to 43, maybe 3 quarterbacks dressed, you're down to 40, 8 offensive linemen that are up, you're down to 32. And then you got, a couple of D linemen that don't participate. Then you got, your star receiver, star running back, all that. You're really down to about 23, 22 guys, that can really play teams. And if you can play on all 4 teams, and plus be a backup running back or, a backup wide receiver, guess what? The guy that can't play on teams, that's the 4th wide out or whatever, you just replaced him as the 4th wide out, So that's definitely, something that's real, it's creating value for yourself, so.
I'm always
coaches,
surprised at the guys
coaches right on that.
Oh, no, I'm always surprised at the guys that don't want to play on special teams, especially if you're a backup, right? You want to get on the field as much as you can. I mean, if you're lacing them up, you might as well touch the grass.
Right. Well, and now I think like where the kickoff rule comes in now, we're going to have more value in that now, because before it was two phases going from the game, essentially. Now those two phases are back. Now that fourth wide out, that fifth wide out, he just can't be a wide out. He's got to cover kicks and he's got to be a part of the team. So now it's going to create more value, especially with this rule change. I truly believe.
Going back to the rule change, there was an interesting article this week. I don't know if you saw it, Blev, but I did send it to Bo, where Coach Belichick was asked about it, and he had some interesting takes. He predicts that there'll be more bigger bodies on kickoff and kickoff return now that everything's in closer proximity. I could definitely see that happening. Real interesting take, because essentially the speed zone or, the block avoidance zone is gone the way and now we're really in what I would call the two gap area, or the area where you don't have time to run around a block. You have to play through blocks. Using probably bigger body guys that in coverage that can know how to pop and shed and create space and play over the top of blocks is going to be important. And then consequently, if you have bigger bodies on the kick team, you're going to need bigger bodies on the return team to try to cover those guys up. So it'll be interesting. I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, I'm like you, because I do think there's a point, a big point of having bigger bodies, but I do think on the coverage team, if they've got bigger bodies, you can play with smaller guys to kind of avoid in space a little bit that can get back in a lane. So it's going to be some different philosophies and people trying to figure it out. So I'm like you, I'm excited to see how this thing plays out. I really am.
Yeah, there's finally some strategy back in it.
Yeah.
No, it's going to be fun to watch. I think I agree with him, especially initially, right? Initially, you're probably going to have some bigger bodies because you guys are lining up 5 yards away from each other. So, you're right into contact. But, at the same time, you're going to need a couple of kind of smaller guys, certainly ones with some speed, because if they get through that first line of people, someone's got to be able to tackle them, right? Because someone's going to be able to tackle them. The returner's still fast.
Right. Yeah. It's going to be interesting. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be an interesting dynamic that it's going to take some time to kind of figure out and kind of play with it. And that's where, the preseason is going to be fun. Because you're going to see everybody's going to return in cover in preseason. So I'm actually looking forward to preseason, this year.
Yeah. Especially for this rule. Preseason's going to be kind of awesome to watch.
Yeah. It'll be neat. I saw they even had to make an exception because the kicker's back there by himself on a windy day. Now he can have a holder like the wizard holder, the stick holder.
Yeah. I saw that,
and I'm wondering on those extremely windy days if that's even going to be enough. My prediction is they're going to have to that back judge, the umpire back there is going to have to, one of the officials is going to have to be a holder.
That would be amazing.
Because they got him trained to pick up the tee after the kick.
After the kick, yeah. So, it'll be interesting to see how, when I took this job, this was the rule. So I started studying it in July a little bit. And it was a game, Vegas versus DC in Vegas. And so the ball had to go past the 20-yard line. The ball couldn't go. The wind was blowing so bad. The wind, the ball just couldn't. Mm-hmm. So they on the fly, they made a rule. I forget what it was. I don't know if it was 25 or 30 or whatever it was. But they kind of made a rule adjustment kind of on the fly, so the play could go on. Because if the ball didn't go to the 20, didn't go past the 20 or landed in front of the 20. I think the ball went to the plus 45 or something like that. It was something, it was a great field position play, and but it was tough when the ball couldn't travel that far. So, but yeah, it was Vegas versus DC, and I want to say it was like week 3, week 2, week
Yeah,
3.
that's the only thing that I'm, because I've seen plenty of balls get kicked not where they're supposed to get to kick to. Kick it deep and it's a line drive like 3 feet off the ground. I mean, it's just, it happens. They're going to miss hit balls. There's going to the whole not just the average weather days, but the extreme weather days. It'll be interesting to see what happens with some of these situations, because those were tough. You had to make decisions, with the old conventional rules. This will be it'll be interesting, only because the players are, they're dispersed. They're down the field. The kicker's back by himself. It's going to be interesting.
I didn't think about it until now, but I guess it does kind of eliminate the squib kick altogether.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Squib kick is done.
Weird. Yeah. And I never even thought about it until not making it to the line. It's like, oh, I mean, there's plenty of times that was on purpose.
Yeah.
You're trying to get that second line of returners that aren't fast.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That kick away from Devin Hester kind of kick.
Yeah. I mean, if you're trying, I don't know. You kick it out of the back of the end zone. You're trying to kick it away from these guys now. You know, I mean, that's
where's the touchback come to? The 30?
Yeah, the 35. The 35. So if it goes straight out the back, it's the 35. If it goes out of bounds, it's still the 45. If it's short, I believe it is the 45 as well. And then if it lands in the target zone and becomes a touchback, then it is a normal touchback, as it is today, where it comes to the 25. So it's kind of convoluted rules, which is why I'm ready to see it in practice, because most of the times I've explained it to people, they look at me like, I'm that crazy guy with a bunch of lines on the wall and doing some murder.
How are they gonna measure offsides on kickoff? Is it how the kickoff team doesn't start until the ball hits the ground or is caught, right? So
correct.
Yeah. Is there a whistle on that tells them to go?
It is. Yeah. So there's going to be a ref in that neutral zone, right? At one of the line judges, basically, and they'll release him, right? They won't blow a whistle, because then that'll create all kinds of confusion. But basically they'll drop their arm or something that allows everybody to start moving, because not only can the kicking team not move, but the return team also can't move.
Right.
Right.
So
that would be bizarre.
I just don't know how you're going to avoid a machine gun start at some point. Somebody's going to get anxious. I mean, we've had enough drills where we've seen that happen. You tell me.
Yeah, without question. Yeah, without question.
Well, and then so that's where the other question on that is like, okay, so say that happens, where does that enforcement come? Do you re-kick and now that line has moved? Because now you're just creating that space that you were just trying to get rid of, right? So
right.
Like how's that penalty get assessed?
That's an interesting question. I don't know the answer, but I would imagine you assess it after the kickoff,
after the return. Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. Again, these are all going to be very interesting to see once play starts to happen, because I'm not even convinced they have all the answers to those questions yet.
I don't think they do.
I think that'll be one of those in practice. They're like, oh, yeah, we should do something about that.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be some trial and error, I think, because it's inevitable. And anytime there's a rule change, there's going to be something that comes up that was not expected. And, there's either going to be a rule change during the season, or they'll table it till after the season. But it'll be something that'll come up that wasn't expected. That's just
somebody will be trying to do something that they hadn't thought of. That's like not bending the rules. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's right. If you're not cheating, you're not trying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine there's a lot of room for gray area at first, and
Right.
then they'll kind of knock the edges off it as people do things, because there's always going to be some of those special teams coaches is like, well, the rule doesn't explicitly say we can't do this.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to be able to do this, but today we can.
Yeah. Without question. Like you say, you're not cheating, you're not trying.
So, I mean, sticking with the draft theme, who would you be looking at? If you were still with the Giants, who do you think they would be targeting with their first couple of picks? Because they're sitting at 6 overall, and they're probably one of the most speculated picks, right? Because Daniel Jones isn't exactly viewed as the guy. There's speculation they'll move up and try and get a quarterback. Some people think they'll stay where they are and get a receiver. There's been talk about them dropping back because they have a bunch of needs and might want to load up on some picks and get some offensive and defensive line. How do you view it, having been in the building and then, of course, outside the building now?
Well, I mean, that's a tough one because I do think the team does have a lot of needs, okay. And is DJ the guy, Daniel Jones? Is he not the guy? And I love DJ. Like, I love who he is. I love his work ethic, how he goes about business. I love his everyday routine. But that's a decision they've got to make. And if they determine that he's the guy, you go get a receiver, in my opinion. If he's not the guy, if a quarterback's there, you take a quarterback, and let him sit for a year, let him play behind Daniel, let him learn. But I do think like and I'll say this, I don't think they've been exactly fair to Daniel. They have not put a bunch of pieces around him other than Saquon, and having that piece. But the receivers, it just haven't, they just haven't worked out, and it's, to a certain degree, it's not fair to DJ. But at the same time, you sit there and say, well, the offensive line gave 80 some sacks last year, so there's a needed offensive line too. So there are a lot of holes in New York right now. That need to be filled. So, me personally, if they stay at 6, like for me personally, like just for the guys that's coming out, I like Michael Penix as a quarterback. Yep. I know there's been some talk about maybe if he's there, they take Michael Penix, maybe not. If it's not that, I take the receiver from LSU. I really like him. Yeah, and this is just from an outside in perspective. I really do like him. I think he's a difference maker that can really stretch the field. He's a big body that can do, some underneath stuff and, get some, polish on him. But I really do think, they go in one of those two directions right there at number 6. Personally, I don't know. If you read everything, talking about trading up to Drake May, that's a possibility, but I'm thinking either quarterback or receiver at 6. And, you try to, obviously they'll all Saquon to Philly. So there's a hole at running back as well, so, so there's so many holes, especially offensively, that, there's a lot of ways you can go. I don't believe they go running back at 6. I don't think that's the way they go. But I think quarterback receiver is where they end up, one or the other. But for my personal favorite at quarterback, Michael Penix, and Neighbors at receiver. Those are my 2 top picks in the draft for me personally. So.
No, I'm with you.
Now I'm a draft prognosticator right now.
No, I'm with you. I mean, out of the draft, Penix throws the best ball. I think. Obviously, people are worried about him being durable because he had, multiple leg injuries. But, one of them was a non-contact. They're ACLs. It's not like it used to be where an ACL or something like that was almost a career-ending event. I mean, now an ACL, it's not really that big of a deal anymore. So as much as people discount him for it, I think he's going to be a solid quarterback in the league.
Right. I do too. I really like him, and I'll be honest with you. I really do think, with DJ, I think DJ is going to have a really strong year. If they can protect him, he's going to have a great year. He had his ACL early in the season last year. I think week 2 or 3 early in the season. So by the time they start playing, he should be in the swing of things. And long as his athleticism is not affected, I think he's going to be fine personally. But I do think they need him some help on the outside and be able to run the ball to kind of protect him a little bit. But I'm really looking forward to seeing what DJ does this year, because I really do think he's a really good quarterback, and to some degree, it was hard on him a little bit, just from the lack of weapons. I think one of his best years was 19, his first year, where he had some guys on the outside, did some things, really, a lot of excitement. Then you change offensive coordinators. Or head coaches, offensive coordinators. Then next year you get a new offensive coordinator. I mean, it was just, kind of the perfect storm for him, and I hate that for him because I really do. I'll be honest with you, I'm a fan of Daniel Jones. Be honest with you, so.
Well, and I mean, you had to feel bad for him this last year until he got hurt. Anyway, he had multiple games where he had 10+ sacks, and I mean. You can be the most talented guy in the world. You're not completing a lot of passes if you're in the grass that much, because that's how many times you got caught. That's not how many times you got hurried and pushed off your spot. So, I mean, you're going to have a bad day if you're hit that much anyway. But yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of holes. Definitely could even use a tight end. I mean, if they were to drop back and maybe grab Brock Bowers, something like that.
Yeah.
He needs somebody. He needs somebody.
Yeah.
He's going to be your guy.
Yeah, and I think there's still, places where, on defense, you need a corner, you need a safety, you need, everybody will take all the D-line help they can get, you know what I mean? So, yeah. So there's a lot of holes on that team all the way around, but I think they'll do a good job. I think Joe does a good job draft and just being able to research, and they'll get the right pieces in place, I think, and they'll be more competitive this year than they were, last year, and you kind of saw once things started going well late in the year, they started playing a little bit better. But I'm excited to see what the draft holds and how it kind of works out for them. I got a lot of good friends still in the building, so I still pull for them. And, I had 5 good years there. It wasn't always perfect, didn't win all the games, but I had 5 good years there, and they treated me well. And so I'll always, part of me will always pull for the New York Giants. So yeah.
As we get close to the end here, I do have a question for you, because I'm always interested in people's perspective of this, just because I'm not a huge fan of the way it's gone, but everybody's kind of viewed it a little different with the way that preseason is today, and the lack of contact that you're allowed to do. You're starting to see the first regular season games almost look like a preseason game, because so many starters don't participate in preseason the same way anymore. Being inside the building, how do you view it when you see, some of the positions don't matter as much as things like offensive line and quarterback receiver timing, that you can tell week 1 is a real problem. And it was real evident this last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's the way it's going, and I don't know if it's ever going to change. I don't think it's going to go backwards. But what you see now is people, practicing against different teams during training camp, and I think you're going to see more of that. And personally, I kind of like that. You can get the good quality of work, and not necessarily, your quarterback is not live. He doesn't get hit in the back. Because let's be honest, it's a quarterback-driven league, and if you lose your quarterback, it's going to be a hard 17 weeks for you. And so I get not wanting to play your quarterback or not play your star receiver, a whole bunch. But I do think you're going to see teams just start doing training camp, practicing against 2 or 3 teams during training camp and trying to get that full speed work. So you do go into game 1, kind of clicking on all cylinders, if you will, or clicking ahead of things, because I do think the first month of the season is like an extended training camp to a certain degree.
I agree with that too. And I mean, Bo, you hit on it from the offensive and defensive execution. I think in the kicking game, it gets even more exasperated early in the year. Things are going to happen. The first couple weeks, you're going to see kicks get blocked. You're going to see returns. You're going to see mistakes. Probably more of a higher incidence in penalties. Especially with their younger teams or teams that are under a newer staff. Maybe putting in a new system or have a lot of young players, inexperienced players playing on teams because they don't get the number of reps, in the preseason games. There's only so many opportunities. The reps you do get are kind of watered down. It's they're live bullets, but it's all 9 millimeters. They're not. They haven't loaded up the real heavy ammo yet. The armor piercing stuff, and that it just And I would say, going along with Blev, it's like, man, 17 regular season games and 3 preseason games is still significantly different than 16 regular season games and preseason games.
Yeah.
With the players and bodies, and it's a fine line between how much you put those guys out there and expose them and how much you need, to be ready for when it counts.
Yeah, and that's what everybody is like. Okay, these three preseason games, we'll play these young guys, try to figure out who can play out of these young guys, make the roster because I know Matthew Stafford's going to be on the roster. I know Bryce Young is going to be on the roster. I know that. That's those decisions are already made. But let me find this free agent. Let me find this 6th-round guy that can play. Or let me find the guys that are battling, to beat a nickel or whatever the case may be. For you want to find those guys, and you give those guys opportunities to play. But like Coach said, where it hurts you is really in the kicking game. The kicking game, can be real sloppy, especially early in the season.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, everything suffers when you don't get to practice, right?
I know we're closing in on the top of the hour. One question I wanted to ask Blev is like, who's been your best mentor over the years? Like, going back to your early days, who kind of, who do you emulate? Who put their arm around you? Who do you give credit to for where you are today?
To be honest with you, there's not one person. That they've all kind of played a role. I talk about guy James West. James West is the guy that got me into coaching. So real quick, I know we're trying to close out, but so I played in the RFL when it was out. It was kind of an alternative league, spring league or whatever. And James was a D-line coach, played in Canada and all that, and really good friend to this day. But he was like, man, you need to coach. We're still playing. And so after the season, we end up winning the championship, and I'm back at home kind of chilling. He calls me, hey, I just took a job at Alabama State. We're looking for a DB guy. Like, are you interested? In Alabama State, it's like an hour 15, hour and a half from the house. I was like, you know what? Hey, I'll try it out, and see what it's like. And so James West is one of the guys. George Pugh, he played, or I played for him at UAB. Coach Foreman, when I was coaching high school ball, he was the head coach. I was assistant. Bruce Arians, Sylvester Kroom. There's not just one guy. Amos Jones, T-Mac. There's not one guy that I can give credit to that says that like they made me or anything like that. It's a combination of all those guys, and there's people. I'm kind of rushing through it. So there's people I left out, but everybody that I've been around, I've taken something from and kind of made it my own. And I love those guys. Bruce has been great to me. James is still, a good friend. Sylvester, still talk to him. Amos Jones, just so many people, that I could, name off, but so yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
No,
But
I appreciate it. And we appreciate having you on today. Thanks for coming and joining us in Coach's Corner.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, we got to close this thing out. Thanks again. And of course, tune in next week.